Hello, I'm from the government with an urgent message about the coronavirus. We know many of you are confused. Some say it's no big deal. Italians are freaking out. The Chinese are hiding out. And Aussies seem to think the virus attacks your butthole.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful country of Canada. Our friends around the world in the known and unknown universe, welcome back to your favorite Angry Canadian on the 25th day of January 2024. Can you imagine this month is almost done? Man, if you don't think time flies, I don't know. Maybe it's because of my age, but to me it seems like time flies. And since I brought up my age, well, I was scheduled to go for a colonoscopy. I'm not saying it right. I always have problems with that friggin' word. So if you ever had one of these, you know the procedure. Well, I never. So the first thing is, day before you go to the drugstore and you get a 4-liter jug with some powder in the bottom. And you take that home, and from 4 in the afternoon you don't eat, but you start drinking that liquid. 2 liters of it. And for my taste buds, it tasted like crap. I didn't like it. So then, being a brainiac, I put some Tang, orange crystals in it. That made it a hell of a lot worse, but what can you do? I drank 2 liters. And now on the note that they sent for preparation, it said, well, you might have to get up at 3 a.m. to finish the rest of the 2 liters left. Because my appointment was for 10 o'clock for the procedure. 8 o'clock, I had to stop everything, drinking, eating, whatever. But I stopped eating the day before. I'm just saying everything. It's 8 o'clock on. You stay clean. Or you should be clean anyway with all that stuff you drank and it went through like a hose. But I got to the hospital. Now, I've been there several times already this year. Different issues, nothing. They all turned out good. But you're supposed to mask up in our hospitals and doctors' offices in British Columbia. Because that's where the viruses hang out. You know, they're nasty. I mean, you can go outside, stand by the door and get your mask off and talk to whoever. That's okay. But the minute you step inside, put that friggin' mask on. Now, being the angry Canadian and JCV dude, I pretty well ignored it. And I proceeded in every time. And even this time, I had no issues. I walked in, I saw even staff with their masks down. There's a little cafe shop. There's people, no mask because they're eating, drinking, people talking on cell phones. So, you know, I mean, this is arbitrary that they're making us wear this, and there's no proven evidence that they do anything to prevent getting viruses or passing them on. So anyway, I'm up at the office. I have to check in. This nurse takes me into a little room, confined, and she sits on one side, I sit on the other. She's on her computer asking all the questions. I'm answering it. No mask on. And then we get up to go get ready for the procedure. I hate talking about that. It's gross. But anyway, and then she tells me I have to put my mask on. And I said, no, no, let's not, I won't get into all the words. I said no. And I eventually, much later, still arguing that there's no proof they do anything. You guys are a bunch of spineless people. I mean, your healthcare, you should look it up, you should know it, and you should champion for the patients. Hell no, I just about did the F-bomb, but I'm going to try and get away from that. So anyway, end of the stories. I gave her the finger and left. And this was like just after 10 in the morning. I didn't have the procedure. I have all the preparations. And because Cindy was there with her mom for her checkup, 95 years old and ticking, I stuck around. Had nothing to do. But remember, I haven't eaten since the day before. And for me, that's torture, but not really. And I only got an hour and a half of sleep, maybe. So I was getting tired, but enjoyed staying. We went to this one area. I forgot what it's called. I'll put it into the video, but it's kind of like receiving. That's where a whole bunch of people go, and then they're examined, and then they're told to go for a CT, an X-ray, blood test, all this sort of stuff. And I sat there, and being a chatty Cathy, I got into conversations with a lot of people. You know, they always talk in the U.S. about the amazing Canadian health care system. You know how good it is? It is just simply amazing. I mean, you know, you can go to a doctor anytime, and it's paid for by the government. Well, there was an older lady, I won't say old, older lady, who's been waiting in that waiting room since 4 a.m. So much for the Canadian healthcare system, and as a matter of fact, there have been patients in hospitals in Canada who have passed away in the waiting room, waiting. Oh, it happens.
Over just 24 hours, 2 patients at this ER on Montreal's South Shore died waiting to see a doctor. One, Radio-Canada reports, had been waiting 12 hours.
Je peux pas vous parler directement des deux cas.
I can't talk to you about the specifics of the 2 cases, says this doctor who works at the hospital.
Notre urgence.
She also says the ER can't keep up with the amount of patients.
Our healthcare system is broken. We don't have enough doctors. We don't have enough space. All kinds of issues are up. But that's a whole different video. Anyway, the waiting room was relatively full, I would say. There was no place left to sit. So I walked over to the nurse and in loud voice, to make sure that everyone was aware of it, but not yelling, I pointed out that lady has been there since 4 a.m. She's had no breakfast, no nothing. She's just waiting. So I'm not going to say it was because of that, but a few minutes later they came and took her away. Not took her away like took her away, but she got service, let's put it that way. And as I said, there was a lot of people in the waiting room. It's actually called streaming. And a lot of people waiting there, and seniors, because if you're not familiar with British Columbia, the Okanagan Valley, Lower Mainland, towards White Rock even, Vancouver Island, British Columbia is like a place where Canadians come to die. You know, you used to hear about the elephant graveyards. Well, this is the seniors' graveyard, because our weather is supposed to be so fantastic, and you can play golf in some places even in the winter if it's a mild one. It is absolutely paradise, except for having the most expensive housing, because people come here with money, so they can be, shaken down pretty good. But I get carried away.
Lengthy wait times for emergency care have become all too familiar right across the country. Those wait times are now costing lives.
Well, when it comes to those important surgeries, we already have a public system opening up the door for privatization, which is going to make healthcare in general in our country even worse.
What I've seen has shocked me. People are getting sick because they don't have access to good primary care.
But the one common thing about all countries is that there's not one country that copies Canada's healthcare system. Not one. That says it all.
Why are healthcare wait times in Canada so incredibly long. Once considered an unassailable centerpiece of this country's identity, an increasing number of Canadians now find themselves worried, anxious, and questioning the very assumptions on which Canadian healthcare is based. As wait times soar, patients are forced to flee the country, and an aging population threatens to bring the entire system to its knees.
So anyway, a lot of older people, and being a chatty Cathy, I started talking with people there. And it turns out, and I can't say names obviously, but a lot of the people I talked to, even seniors, were disobedient. They didn't get vaccinated. I didn't even ask, but they were volunteering for, I don't know why, but conversations came up. Conversations also went to how they were dismissed by their families who got vaccinated. It also came up that, there were no health issues other than getting old. They've had a cold or a flu. And when I was talking with them, I said, oh, Christ, since I was a kid. And when I was working and I got sick, could take a couple of days off. But after that, even if you're sick, you return to work because it's money. 2 days pay for a week is not going to keep you going much. So anyway, we talked about a lot of stuff. And roundabout way, I started talking to this young woman who was there with her child, who was there with her young son, and the boy was in distress. He was crying in pain. And this went on for a while. Now, it doesn't bother me. I've had kids, so I understand when they're in pain, teething, or whatever. You got gas, they'll cry. They did nothing. What could they do? Well, they could come and see if there's anything they could do. I'm not a friggin' nurse or doctor. But I did get up and go to the nurse's station and ask if they got anything small, plasticky, that the little boy wouldn't swallow or be harmful. And one of the nurses found something safe that I could give to the little guy. You got to feel sorry. I mean, they can't really express what's happening, but it hurts. So anyway, I found out from the lady that perhaps it'd be a good idea if I went back for colonoscopy. Said it wrong again. I'm not going to even try. I'll just say colon look. But that was a good reason. And then she also told me about blood clots. And that is a very scary thing when you start hearing other people mentioning blood clots that, we don't hear much about in the news, but it's very prevalent. It's more, I can't tell you how many people just in the last week or so I've heard that has had blood clots after getting jabbed. Now, what I really think about that is perhaps it'd be a good idea for thing to start up, a group on Facebook, on X, on wherever, to start individual citizens posting about what issues they have had. And if you want to have another one, people that have been fined, that's good also. We're going to see both sides. But if there's a lot of people that have similar experiences, well, first of all, you got to find out why the media doesn't open its big fat face. Oh yeah, money. That's the reason. And then, maybe get people together from this group, and it'd be good to have, a few hundred, maybe even a few thousand, and start making class action suits against the government. And even if you can't sue the government, go to the Supreme Court, go to wherever, go after individuals, people on TV, radio, and newspaper that wrote or talked about safe and effective. And, if you're not using the vaccine, well, you're the problem. You sure the hell the problem. And start suing them everywhere. And class action. Lots of people, at the very least, get some attention. At best, maybe succeed. Some of these bastards and bitches should be fired instantly. They have harmed innocent civilians' lives without even an apology or a blink. Nope, they're not going to apologize. And get ready. You know that the virus X is on the horizon.
And anything happening is a matter of when, not if. So we need to have a placeholder for that, for the disease we don't know. That may come. And that was when we gave the name Disease X.
Hello, warm welcome to this talk, Saturday the 13th of January. Now I want to be talking about Disease X in a minute from a small radio station in Switzerland called Radio Davos, I think it was. More on that shortly, but a bit of a disappointment first. This is from the UK COVID inquiry, and unfortunately the public hearings for the inquiry's fourth investigation into vaccines and therapeutics module will be rescheduled. The hearings were provisionally scheduled to take place in the summer of 2024. They will now take place at a later date. And then there's some rationale given there which you may choose to accept or not, to enable organisations to prioritise providing evidence for the inquiry's third investigation into the impact of the pandemic on healthcare. Now, this inquiry has cost you and me, the proletariat, the plebeians, so far it's cost us 145 million. Quite incredible. Now, I'm going to talk about Disease X in a minute, but just before we do that, this is just a completely unrelated article I was reading in the Guardian newspaper from November 2022. This is Paul Burrell, who was a royal butler. And Paul Burrell reported a conversation with Her Majesty the Queen prior to her sad recent departure. And Paul Burrell reports that the Queen said this, Queen Elizabeth said this: "There are powers at work in this country about which we have no knowledge." So it looks like there are powers at work, but we don't know what they are. So in Donald Rumsfeld terms, this would be known unknowns, I guess. Now, I want to talk now about Disease X, which is on this website here. This is the World Economic Forum site, as far as I can derive. Disease X, this is how we should prepare for the next big virus. Wow. So this, you can listen to it here or you can read it there. It's all very easy to understand while being rather difficult to understand. Now, Disease X, I've been teaching this sort of thing pretty well full time since 1990. And I've been a clinical nurse since 1975 when I was a first year student. And I'd never heard of this Disease X. So I looked at some of my books, because when I wrote my book, I couldn't remember putting it in. So it wasn't in there, but I could easily miss it, couldn't I? So I did check in Rubens' Pathology. These are the definitive texts. Couldn't see it in there either. So I checked in Guyton and Hall, superb physiology book. Not in there either. Porth's Pathophysiology. Not in there either. It's a fairly thick book. You think it could be in there somewhere. You get the idea. Not in that one. Can hardly pick this one up. Pathophysiology. All these standard textbooks. Not in there. So it must be a new disease. Can't say I like the sound of a new disease. We've had a new disease already, haven't we? Anyway, this is just, I want to give you some highlights from the Radio Davos talk. Disease X is looming. The world needs to be better prepared to tackle a future pandemic.
So what do you think they're going to do to a bunch of population that takes a shit that they pile on and doesn't take action to protect itself? You know, they've already seen it in Canada. It's going to happen the same all over. And yes, I do say sue the mother truckers I don't mean the truckers, I mean the mother effers, because, like I said, they got money. Some of them even made money from pharmaceuticals. It's a crooked, corrupt game. And just to prove how crooked and corrupt it is, April 1st, we're going to get another tax increase in gas, and I don't know what the hell else they're going to be increasing, but we always increase, except pensions and stuff like that. People go on strikes. They want more money because everything's going up. But what about the government? What about government employees? Say members of the parliament. What's happening with them? Well, as I said, April 1st, you're going to pay more tax, and April 1st, their paychecks will increase nicely. And not only them, CBC, Bank of Canada, all.
It just goes to show you, it's always something. If it's not one thing, it's another.
Whoa, it's getting cold here in Ottawa, so members of parliament are getting ready to shove their hands deeper into your pocket. On April 1, MPs are going to give themselves another raise, and the Canadian Taxpayers Federation crunched the numbers, and the raise will range between an extra $8,100 for a backbench member of parliament, all the way up to an extra $16,200 for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. So after the April 1 pay raise, a backbencher, along with collecting dust, will collect a salary of about $202,000. A minister will take home just shy of $300,000, and the Prime Minister, well, Mr. Trudeau's annual salary will be about $405,000 smackers. We're right outside of the Bank of Canada, where their executives gave themselves $3.5 million in bonuses last year. $3.5 million in bonuses. 80 of 82 Bank of Canada executives got a bonus last year. The average bonus was more than $43,000.
Okay, so the last economic update, the last budget update from Freeland essentially gave the CBC an extra $42 million to help the CBC recover through the pandemic, right? Isn't that nice? And that's $42 million extra on top of the billion plus they get every single year. So they got an extra $42 million from the feds to help them recover through the pandemic. Well, since the beginning of the pandemic, they handed out $46 million in bonuses. You see that math? An extra $42 million to help recover from the pandemic, then an extra $46 million in bonuses to their employees during the pandemic, right? So that just doesn't really add up to me.
There is a clear message that is coming through. This is becoming a pandemic of the unvaccinated. We are seeing outbreaks of cases in parts of the country that have low vaccination coverage because unvaccinated people are at risk. And communities that are fully vaccinated are generally faring well. The good news is that if you're fully vaccinated, you are protected against severe COVID, hospitalization, and death, and are even protected against the known variants, including the Delta variant circulating in this country. If you are not vaccinated, you remain at risk. And our biggest concern is that we are going to continue to see preventable cases, hospitalizations, and sadly deaths among the unvaccinated. Lastly, I want to reiterate the importance of getting fully vaccinated. I want to reiterate that people who got the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are most effective, especially when against the Delta variant, when given as 2 shots in a series. Both vaccines are most effective 2 weeks after the second dose, with each exceeding 90% effectiveness against severe disease, hospitalization, and death in real-world studies. Not completing the series puts those partially vaccinated at risk of illness. We encourage that people get vaccinated on schedule 3 or 4 weeks after your first dose. But if you are beyond that window, I want to reiterate there is no bad time to get your second shot.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.